very, very sad. Tonight, Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, Your Excellency, rest in perfect peace, 1948 to 2005. Let's go over and look at, so this is from Dr. Muhammadu Baumia, and he says, to the children and family of the late Madam Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, I share in your sorrow and extend my deepest condolences on your loss. Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings lives behind a legacy defined by her unwavering commitment to the nation's women and girls. Throughout her time as First Lady of the Republic of Ghana and beyond, she was a true champion of women advocacy. She didn't just speak about women's rights, she mobilized a movement. Her work empowered countless women across Ghana to achieve financial independence and take up leadership roles. May her soul rest in peace. Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, 1948, November 1948 to October 2025. This is from the presidency upon the announcement being delivered by the family of Mrs. Rawlings. Presidency said, may God grant Nana Konadu a peaceful rest. That was from President John Dramani Mahama. Now, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who forged an excellent relationship with Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings over the last 8 to 9 years, and they have been very, very close since then. And Nana Akufo-Addo, obviously disheartened by the news, writes that my wife Rebecca and I are deeply saddened by the news of the untimely passing of the wife of the late first president of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, the longest-serving First Lady in our history and the founder of the 31st December Women's Movement. Her Excellency Mrs. Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. As a role model for women in Ghana and across Africa, Mrs. Rawlings' gender advocacy and women empowerment initiatives remain impactful to this day. Her commitment to the growth of the women's movement in Ghana and Africa can never be forgotten. She was a warm and affectionate woman with a good sense of humor and was excellent company. My wife Rebecca, my children and I extend our deepest condolences to her children and family on this sad occasion. May her soul rest perfectly in the bosom of the Almighty until the last day of the resurrection, when we shall all meet again. Rebecca Akufo-Addo says, my deepest condolences to the family and friends of former First Lady Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings in these difficult times. May her soul rest in peace. Samira Baumia says, I'm deeply saddened to learn about the unfortunate passing of Her Excellency Mrs. Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, the former First Lady of Ghana and founder of the National Democratic Party. Mrs. Rawlings was an inspirational figure who fiercely championed women empowerment in Ghana. She will be fondly missed. May God grant her a peaceful rest and strengthen her children and her entire family. Ambassador Victor Smith says Ghana has lost a bold and visionary leader. Victor Smith mourns with Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. Nana Kwame Bediako, Cheddar, says, from Nana Kwame Bediako to the late former First Lady Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. Cheddar is quite dramatic, viewers. You know that Cheddar is not just going to put up a tribute. He's going to be dramatic about it. So look, have a look. He says, oh no, my heart is broken. Who will give me those gentle nudges again? Those whispered teases wrapped in wisdom, followed by laughter that could lift even the heaviest heart. You were my friend, my mother, and a true matriarch of this nation. My words are not enough to express the depth of my sorrow at this moment. If only I could share the pain of Kimathi, Zaneto, Ya Asantewa, and our dear Princess Amina. I will take a portion of their grief upon myself just to ease their burden. What a beautiful spirit we were blessed to have in Ghana. Our First Lady, our Mother of Strength, our symbol of grace. Your elegance, your compassion, your love for children and women, your leadership and your fashion sense made you more than a First Lady. You became a beacon of Ghanaian womanhood. And he goes on and on and on Nana Kwame Bediako. So tributes pouring in for Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. I'm sure that as the days go by, we're going to see tributes from Mariam Babangida, the former First Lady of Nigeria. We're going to see tributes from Mrs. Abacha, another former First Lady from Liberia. We're going to see tributes from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the former president of Liberia. We're going to see tributes from Graça Machel, the former wife of Nelson Mandela. Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings was very influential across all these places in Africa and across the world. Ghana has deeply lost. Let's take the video of the visit of Ambassador Spielgabra, and then we'll come to show you the 2 stories in our book about Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. We'll read some of the stories to you, but we'll urge you to buy the book and read the full story, and then you can get all the information. So this is the video of when Ambassador Spielgabra visited the home of Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings after the unfortunate announcement.
Incidents where a close friend, a close relative may also depart. And so when such incidents take place, we often are left with grief and all kinds of emotions run into our heads. Eventually, in many cases, the truth comes out and we come to terms with it. At this time, I've not come to terms with this truth, so I can only express my grief and my sorrow if it turns out to be true, and wish the family and all of us in Ghana and the whole of Africa really our condolences if it turns out to be true.
Doc, what principles and, if you like, moral, standards of the former First Lady as a key member of the NDC are you able to most reflect on?
There's a lot to reflect on, a lot to be said at the right time. But her greatness has not been fully appreciated, partly because of the circumstances in which NDC lost power and the unfortunate developments that took place after we lost power with her 31st December Women's Movement being investigated in a very unfriendly manner by the Kufuor government at the time. The fact that she had to go to court for many years, and even her late former husband, President Rawlings, also had to be in court, sometimes standing for many hours. It was a low moment in Ghana's democratic development. But NDC has won power and lost power. And we've seen at different times when the former President Rawlings was also alive, he tried to restrain himself with many of the negative things that are going on in our country and which were going on at the time he was alive. And I believe the former First Lady also was very mindful of those things. But as I said, the time will come for us to speak at length. So at this time, I'll just plead with you to allow us and the rest of the country to verify actually what has happened. And as I've said, if it is true, then obviously we'll have to mourn her in a very special way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that's Dr. Spielgabra, former Trade Minister, and also a former presidential,
Ambassador Spielgabra's tributes, which is quite solemn, takes us to our first story in the book, The Africa's New Constitutional Leadership, the 77 Stories That Define Ghana's Fourth Republic. Is a book by Paul Adomotri. And in there is 2 stories about Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings that you didn't know. Let me run it through very quickly. And it is story 11, and it's entitled The Political, Social, and Legal Drama Preceding Election 1996. Now, this was election 1996 coming up. Some of you didn't know it, but you know elections and how it goes. So let me just go to the story. Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings and the dramatic events during the 1996 campaign. The story is as follows. The story is told of a dramatic day during the 1996 campaign. The day starts normal as any other for Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings. She goes to work as usual, but keeping an eye on the campaign PR efforts. Upon her return home to have lunch, she is said to have observed that one of her children was jubilantly singing an MPP campaign song. Mrs. Rawlings became alarmed and wondered why her daughter would be singing an MPP campaign song in her house with weeks to go for the voting. She then considered that campaign PR strategies were not working and that things were shaky in that regard. As a result, Madame, as she was affectionately called an urgent campaign PR meeting in her house that afternoon at about 2 p.m. The meeting was attended by all the important people. Some, however, were surprised by the presence of Eko Spielgabra because Eko was at that time Ghana's ambassador to Washington and was expected to be out of the country. But it turned out that the entire meeting was about Spielgabra. So, citing the incident about her daughter and the MPP song, Mrs. Rawlings took the liberty of making significant changes to the campaign effort. She directed that Spielgabra become the new leader of the campaign PR. In doing so, Madame had effectively sacked people like Vincent Asise, Totobi Kwache, Mije Bano, and Guzi Tano. The atmosphere in Madame's rich residence that day was tense, and the rumor mill carried the narrative the entire movement had been orchestrated by Spielgabra so that he would hijack the entire 1996 campaign away from the Fanti Confederacy of Totobi Kwache and Ahoy. What was unknown to Spiel at that time was that the Fanti Confederacy and the Ahoys owned the number 2 ticket for the campaign because they had placed Professor Mills right there, and they were not going to let their role in the campaign be easily diminished. Thus, it is said that when the Fanti Confederacy gave instructions to all persons who were working on the campaign PR to the effect of having them think that no new decisions had been made at Madame's meeting. Eko Spielgabra, meanwhile, began his work in earnest and became the important voice appearing on radio and television for the NDC's campaign. Spiel spoke well and had relationship with many MPP figures on account of their days in Achimota School. He felt that he held the magic wand and could counter the MPP on any intellectual platform, and he managed to convince Rawlings about this. Thus, the NDC PR campaign took a two-pronged approach, one led by Spielgabra and the other led by the Fanti Confederacy. I will not go on the stories in the book. Get a copy of the book at the University of Ghana bookshop and Vidya bookshop in Labone, University of Ghana, KNUST. They all have the book. So that's one story about Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings that you need to read from our book, a lot of gossip. Then there's a second story. Is that the beginning of the second story? Okay. Oh, no, this is the second story. Okay. So that's story 54. Mrs. Rawlings challenges President Mills for the NDC leadership in 2012. Within 2 years of his government, it became obvious that the relationship between Professor Mills and Rawlings had broken down beyond reconciliation. In fact, Kwame Ahoy, in his book Working with Rawlings, narrates how some of the younger communicators in the party were coached and prepared to direct negative communication against J.J. Rawlings in response to what they thought was Rawlings' bothersome approach to Mills. It came as very little surprise when the office of the former First Lady, Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, picked up nomination forms preparing to challenge the incumbent president, Professor Mills, for the nomination of the NDC ticket. This offended the Mills caucus, for they reminded the Rawlingses that during the second term bid of J.J. Rawlings in 1996, no party was permitted to challenge Rawlings' bid. The actual Congress took place on a football park in Sunyani in the Bono regional capital. During the return of nomination forms on behalf of Professor Mills, the Mills campaign stripped their opponents to the bone as they presented several high-profile NDC members to endorse the Mills candidature. Most of the senior women who came up to endorse Mills had at a point in time been key allies of Mrs. Rawlings during her days as First Lady. Such women included Betty Moldy Drisu, Mrs. Sherry Aite, Mrs. Cecilia Johnson, and Madam Ama Benyuado. This single act suggested to many that it was going to be very difficult for Mrs. Rawlings to make an impact in the presidential primaries against Professor Mills. Voting day in Sunyani. On voting day, President Rawlings, as founder of the party and a high-profile guest at the event, found himself in very difficult circumstances. The party was in government and had a sitting president. Normally, such sitting presidents go through unopposed for the second term bid for their party's nomination. He, Rawlings, had benefited from a similar gesture, and the man that he had introduced to Ghanaians was now president and seeking a second term. But the challenger to this established convention was none other than his own wife. Everyone was waiting to hear Rawlings' speech and hopefully glean his position from whatever speech he would give. I'll leave it here, and if you get the book, you'll find out what Rawlings said. All of this captured in the book entitled The Africa's New Constitutional Leadership, the 77 stories that define Ghana's Fourth Republic. 2 of the stories about Mrs. Rawlings, and again, the book is available at the University of Ghana bookshop. There you go. It's available at the University of Ghana bookshop, and it's also available at the KNUST in Kumasi. The KNUST bookshop is selling at 200 cedis at the University of Ghana bookshop and the KNUST, and it's also selling at Vidya bookshop. So you can get those stories. As we mourn Mrs. Rawlings, you know that even before she passed, our book had captured the history. And that's it on Amazon as well. And on Amazon, your step 1 is to go to www. We'll put all of this on our social media page so that you can see it. We've done the Amazon. We don't have much time. Come back quickly to the studio and let's get ready for the interview. Now, though, we have a small 3-minute montage that we have prepared, as we always do, for the Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings Memorial. This is it.
This afternoon, I received a delegation of the children of our late mother, Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, to inform me about her untimely and unfortunate passing. I'll ask that we rise and pay a moment's silence to her memory.
I